If I'm gonna be honest with you, when the opportunity to participate in a TEDx event presented itself to me, my initial, absolute first reaction was fear. I was completely, utterly terrified, a little bit excited, but mostly terrified. The problem at hand, however, wasn't something like stage fright. It was more complex and important to me than just being scared of speaking in front of people. It had more to do with what I would be saying to those people. I was scared because I felt dumb, because I'm young and inexperienced, and I thought that I wouldn't have anything to say that would matter. You see, I've always thought that speeches like these had to be clever, or witty, or insightful, or incredibly inspiring, and every time I'd finish watching a TED Talk, I'd just be in awe, wondering how people could come up with these amazing ideas. I thought that you had to be the best, and you had to be able to change the world to be allowed to speak on a stage like this. My assumptions, my prejudices, my standards that I had for what a TED Talk, for what my TEDx talk should be, suddenly seemed so vast and out of proportion to my scope of ability when I started writing. Because I'm 15. I haven't had a life-changing epiphany yet. I haven't even graduated high school. I learned how to cook pasta like last month. I technically speaking don't know anything about the real world. So how was I supposed to change it? How was I supposed to do something as smart and cool and prestigious as a TED Talk? My standard for myself, for a speech that I hadn't even written yet, was up there, on the ceiling. I had to be up there, and I had to be there immediately. Now, I think I'm a decently tall person. That's a bit of a reach. I suppose to get up there would not only take time, but I suppose at least like a chair or maybe a ladder or a really tall friend. A standard, or the topic of standards, is what I'm trying to get at. Particularly standards that are too high for us to reach. The topic of standards of failure and standards of success, and how, when they're too high, exactly how detrimental they can be, and how they led me to my own downfall, or as big of a downfall as a 15-year-old can have. A standard, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, is a level of quality or attainment. But I want to add to this definition, because I think that a standard is a level of quality or attainment that each individual feels the need to reach in order to feel accomplished in themselves, to feel content or normal or successful. Mine, yours, the king's, your sisters, your teachers' standards of themselves, and the world around them, they're all different. They vary from person to person. For instance, my standard of a clean room is not the same as my mom's standard of a clean room, and my standard of a good grade is not the same as some of my classmates' standard of a good grade. Everybody's standards of success vary, and one person's success might be another person's failure. Take as an example Dave Mustaine, the co-founder, lead vocalist, and guitarist of one of the most prominent heavy metal bands in the world, Megadeth. But also the ex-guitarist of one of the even more popular bands, Metallica. Mustaine was kicked out of Metallica one fateful morning in 1983 by his members over a concern with his drinking habits. The breakup was abrupt, bitter, if you may, but from it, Megadeth was born and grew to become considered one of the most important metal bands in the world. However, for 20 years to come, Mustaine couldn't seem to stop comparing his success, the success of Metallica, or the success of Megadeth, to that of Metallica's. He never seemed to feel completely successful in himself, despite having already created a band that was critically acclaimed and commercially successful. His analogy can be applied to us all in the sense that we'll never feel successful or content or accomplished until we reach our own standard of success. To us, it might seem ridiculous that he feels like he's failed when the rest of the world thinks that he succeeded. Failure is something that everybody in here has experienced. An exact definition would be the lack of success. It is something vital and incredibly important in our growth as human beings. It helps us shape who we are and who we want to become. And it is, if you think about it, just a normal, common thing. It happens to everybody, every day, all the time. Yet to most of us, it seems like the worst case scenario. It seems incredibly bad. I think it's because being told that you're not good enough, being told that that essay that you slaved over for days, or the event that you've been planning for weeks, or the competition that you've trained for months, that the results suddenly aren't up there, it hurts. It hurts having to fall all the way back down again with nothing but the cold ground of failure to land on, without even allowing yourself a cushion of second best to ease your landing. When I look at the reaction of some of my classmates to their fail grades, it seems like the end is near, that total annihilation is upon us, and that the apocalypse is around the corner. But to me, it's absurd, because we're second years in high school, and that fail grade, it's just next to top marks. So why is my friend crying because they got just next to the best, just next to perfect? Why is it that we seem to live in a world where nothing next to a PhD seems smart enough? Why is it that if you're not hot, if you're not rich, and if you don't have perfect grades or stupidly expensive education, you're just average? And why is it that I can't seem to accept the fact that, yeah, so what? I am completely average. Because there are 7.5 billion other people on this planet, 7.5 billion other people that I have to be better than at age 15. Why can't we just be happy, be content in being just good enough? These standards for ourselves, they aren't necessarily just our own doing. In fact, they're more often than not influenced by outside factors like environment, teachers, parents, or media, or a mix of them all. We look up to these things and try to, if not become them, at least impress them. They should, in theory, be the main factors in motivation. They should help us reach our goals and go for our dreams, but in reality, in practicality, it's easy for them to start ruling our minds and ruling our self-confidence. In 1998, Claudia Miller and Carol Dweck of Columbia University conducted a study investigating the effects of praising ability over praising effort in fifth graders. After having taken a test and all received decent grades on them, the class was split in half of them being praised for their ability, their seeming natural intelligence, and the other half being praised for their effort, their hard work. The children that were praised for their ability, having heard things like, "You must have been very smart to be able to solve those questions," experienced future, less good grades on tests as failure. Meanwhile, students that were praised for their effort, having heard things like, "You must have worked very hard to be able to get to where you are now, to be able to achieve those good grades," experience future, also less good grades on tests as a learning experience. The students that were praised for their ability also showed less persistence, less task enjoyment, and worse task performance on future tests, while students that were praised for their effort showed more enthusiasm towards learning and improving and performed better on future tests. Praising each other's ability, our talents, seems like a natural way to motivate each other, right? It seems normal, it seems obvious, but we realize now that even at a young age, it starts to build a standard of perfection, and motivates us only to try and prove our supposed genius. Only when we can't immediately excel at something, we think we're failing. We think our genius is failing. The study was more than eye-opening to me because my entire life I've been told that I was smart, excessively smart, and that I had talent in a lot of things. But it was only in hindsight and quite recently that I realized that maybe that wasn't all that true. Because if I was so smart, why was I failing classes? If I was such a talented swimmer, why wasn't I performing as well as I wanted during competitions? It made me confused. Because growing up and having been reassured that I did good because I am good always somehow made me sure that I couldn't ever fail. But as the workload of life caught up to me once I got older, I still hadn't really learned how to work for success. Because success had just always been something that I had by my side because I'm so talented and I'm so smart. It wasn't only in TEDx that I had these high expectations for myself, I realized. I expect myself to be up there in everything I do. I expect myself to get up there with ease, to do so in an instant, and to be able to latch onto the ceiling and never come down again. In other words, I should become an insect. I should become something other than myself with abilities beyond my own. But obviously, I can't. I'm myself and only myself. This too, however, I only realized in hindsight. You see, I used to be up there, or at least well on my way. I used to be the straight A student who partook in extracurricular activities and was the MVP on my swim team. I used to excel at the things that I did, and I used to have standards that were high, but high enough for me to reach. That was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I was good at a lot of things, really good. But in 4 years, a lot of things also changed. A lot of really big things that changed my circumstances. Let's compare them to, say, breaking my legs. Let's say that I've had broken legs for 4 years. I'm still me, it's just that my abilities are now limited. And getting up there seemed like a little bit of an overwhelming task. I tried from the beginning to start off where I'd left off, right at the top, and it almost worked. It took a lot of effort, ability, and energy that I had at the time, but in limited amounts. Trying to get to the top, it wasn't impossible, but it was extremely difficult. And every time I tried, it seemed like I couldn't. I kept falling down. I became so exhausted from my fight to the top, trying to get up there, that eventually, 2 years later, I stopped. I stopped trying to climb because I was tired of falling down. I went from top student, best swimmer on my swim team, to failing classes and almost quitting my favorite sport. Things that I'd excelled at, things that I'd been so good at, things that adults came up to me and said, "You have talent in this, and you can get far in life with this," became things that I was bad at, things that I was embarrassed to talk about. Standards of success are like most things in life, good in moderation. But I think for people like me, perfectionists and overachievers, they're also our biggest weakness. As our standards of success rise, our standards of failure also sink. becoming easier to achieve. And, you know, my legs might be broken, but I don't think I've failed. I might not be where I want to be, but I haven't failed because my standard of success isn't up there anymore. And my standard of failure isn't down here. We will never feel content, accomplished, until we reach our own definition of success, our own definition of perfect. But what is perfect? My perfect? Your perfect? They're all different. So which one should we chase after? Which one should we strive for? I say we strive for neither. I say we strive for a little less than both of our perfects. I say we strive for being happy each day. We need to remind each other that it's okay to be okay. It's okay to not always be excellent. I don't have to be excellent. I don't have to be outstanding right now. We have to remind each other that and say things like, you've worked so hard and I'm so proud of you for where you've gotten. Or keep going. Be persistent and you will get to where you want to be. We need to remember that every success, small or big, even if you haven't reached the top yet, is success to be proud of. It's good success. You might not be up there yet, but every step to get there is a step well intended and a step to be proud of. So, I say, instead of trying to be perfect, because perfect doesn't exist, we try to be happy and we try to be content and feel accomplished in the things that we succeed in every day. If the only thing you did today that was successful was get out of bed and make it to this TED Talk, then congratulations. To get up there, it's possible. But as of now, I can't. If you can, please do. If you can get up there without hurting yourself, by all means, be my guest. But if you can't, try reaching maybe just a little lower and go from there. Don't change your standards. I'm not asking you to lower them because your standards are good for you. High standards are good for you. Expect a lot from yourself and work hard, but don't lose yourself on the way there. Thank you.